Although weeping lasted all night, I know that joy comes in the morning light. So I march on to a new song, 'cause I've been marching to that old one way too long. And I gotta move on and take new steps every day, 'cause I know there is got to be another way. And I'm brighter today, so I march on.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Pure Live. So I want to get this started correctly. First, I want to let you know that the show is sponsored by Posh Women's Apparel, classy, sophisticated, stylish. Here's some of the clothing items that they have, which I have worn in a couple of my shows. So if you want to check them out, you can go to poshwomensapparel.com. Beautiful clothes, ladies. Check them out. All right. So before we get started, I want to show you guys a video that is dealing with a movement, a stand-up movement led by Elijah Jamal. And he's requiring your assistance. So check it out.
Hi. For those of you who don't know, my name is Elijah Jamal. I wrote a song with audio mode called Stand Up, and it addresses so much of what's going on in the world today and how important it is to stand up for what's right, which is why I'm asking you for your help. We're shooting a music video for the song, and we want to know what you stand up for. Send us a video of you holding up a sign showing what you're standing up for, and send it to be a part of the music video. All submissions should be submitted to standupvideo2020@gmail.com. The time is now to take a stand. Stand up today for tomorrow.
I gotta stand up for something, for anything.
That's what I'm talking about. All right. So tonight we have Doctors Aaron and Margaret Jamal, because we are going to flip the script. They are interviewing me. Why? Because we're going to talk about my COVID-19 experience. Yeah, it hit home. So we're going to talk about how hard it hit in the other parts of this topic. So now I'm going to turn it over to Doctors Aaron and Margaret Jamal. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you for having us. Thank you, Asia. I'm Dr. Margaret Jamal, and he's
Dr. Aaron Jamal.
Indeed. And we're good. We're happy to be the co-host today as we dig into the topic of COVID-19 in the African American community, especially. What happens when it hits home? And we believe that the story about how it really impacts people is not something that we're hearing a lot of. We do hear, for example, that someone experienced it and maybe some people got sick and some people passed. But the broad range of how it impacts people is really interesting to me. How it started, how it actually affected the lives of your children, the people who are around you, how we were like so scared. We were frightened the first time that we heard about it. And we like to start with, as far as your story is concerned, how it even entered your household.
Well, actually, before we get there, because that's very important as well, but we need to set things up also with the recognition of the fact that there is a disproportionate impact for African Americans in general. We know that some of that is related to the fact that our vocations are largely in the service area, where you got people that are actually driving the bus or working in face-to-face scenarios at the supermarket or whatever. And because of those vocations, they're put at risk with more frequency, correct? You would agree with
Correct.
that? Okay, then. All right. So, in addition to that dynamic, there is also the risk of not only being impacted as a result of your vocation, but actually being impacted by the exposure to your children, if it is that you have children, or your loved ones that are going back and forth, even if it is that you are fortunate enough, as you are, to actually work from your home setting.
Mm-hmm.
So there are different dynamics that are happening here, and so you're among the more privileged, Asia, in that you are fortunate enough to have a vocation that has allowed you to work from home, and yet even in that privileged setting, you were still impacted.
And the other dynamic that we're going to explore is the dynamic of not being able to seek adequate testing and medical help. What keeps people from going and getting tested and getting the help that they need? So let's go back with, how was this introduced into the Rodgers family first?
So it's interesting because my husband is actually the one that got tested because a coworker tested positive at their job. He was not showing any symptoms, and he still to this day has never shown any symptoms. So had that event not happened, nobody would have gotten tested in the household.
Sure. Okay.
Mm.
All right. So him being asymptomatic was still, well, one, you didn't know any to be concerned about it, and two, you didn't know to protect as a result of that, right? Which
Correct.
again is another challenge for those. And your husband is one that's actually working in a service oriented area as well, as far as his vocation is concerned, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So he's customer facing. He's taking all these precautions that you told us about. And in addition to that, he is one of the people that will be listed as high risk. Explain that.
Right, because he has diabetes, and myself, I'm also high risk, and my son is high risk because we both have asthma.
Okay. And all those dynamics are, I think, sometimes more prevalent among the Black African American community. But that's not the only thing it is that we have to deal with as a community. We also have to deal with the biases associated with the healthcare workers that we actually go to for help. If by chance we're not feeling well, then we have to deal with the biases that have actually caused some of those healthcare workers to be somewhat indifferent to the symptoms that you're expressing and think of things in a negative way rather than seeking first to help you. Is that right?
That is correct. What's interesting is they say if you have underlying conditions, then you should be more concerned. But I
Mhm.
feel like my underlying conditions actually got in the way of me getting proper treatment initially.
Mm.
Explain.
Well, because I already had asthma, because I already had IBS, my symptoms, although extreme, they're like, oh, you're probably just having some kind of exacerbated episode of these borderline symptoms, that you would normally get with these diagnoses. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
and I explained to them like, well, first of all, my asthma has been very controlled. I hardly ever need an inhaler. I haven't been on medication. It's not normal for me to struggle to breathe.
Mhm.
Um, and then the IBS situation, I was in extreme pain, doubled over. It was intense, and that's not what my experience was before.
You
Mhm.
you you said IBS, right?
No,
I is in
irritable,
Bravo. Yes.
irritable bowel syndrome.
Okay.
So it's it's not as simple as it sounds either. If you guys want to look it up, you're more than welcome. But it can be a painful situation. But to the extent that I was in pain, it didn't make any sense. It was like hardly anything was helping to relieve
Mhm.
my pain. But they were very dismissive because I already had these diagnoses.
And let's stay on that stigma section too. I even found myself, okay, this is our daughter, right? There is this stigma about COVID-19. It was like I found myself, who do we tell? Who do we ask? And we know that we needed prayer. And I noticed even right away, you didn't tell everybody. The whole family didn't know. Why is that? Why do we tend to have a stigma about telling people when we have a sickness?
I didn't want to freak people out. I didn't want, people to, well, there were two reactions I wanted to avoid. One, I didn't want people to be overly worried about me unnecessarily, because I didn't know what level I was on or what was going on yet. The other thing is I didn't want people to be like, oh, she has COVID. Stay away. And so it's like, even after I'm all better and symptom free, I was thinking to myself, people still might be like, she has cooties. Don't,
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I kind of just didn't want everybody to know. And once it got out there, it's like, all right, well, yeah, that's what's going on. So, but it was nice that I got all the love and support I did through it.
Yeah, and let me just say this about COVID for those of you that are listening in, and you're not as well informed as maybe we would all like to be. Even the scientists in this scenario are still trying to figure this thing out. And the reality is that while we're going through these um, stages of discovery, there are going to be some things that is that they thought were one thing, and then they find is something else. There are going to be times where it is that even their findings that they thought were deadly are not as deadly, and vice versa. And so we're going to have to do our best not only to give grace to the science community, but to try to refrain from having those negative judgmental reactions when we're caught up in this thing, because nobody really knows exactly what's going on. Is it serious? Absolutely. Is it something that we need to become more informed about? Absolutely. What we have to remember on top of all those things is that we're human. And the dynamic of this particular pandemic is one that is causing people to be driven apart from one another because of its contagious nature, and causing people to be
Mm-hmm.
afraid of actually doing what we are designed to do, which is to bring comfort to one another.
Mm-hmm.
We're designed to do that. Okay, so having said that, I do, I mean, I feel, while you were saying there was a resistance or reluctancy to put that out there, but even though it is that you did receive a great deal of love and things like that, there's some things it is that have happened even since it is that you're doing better. Because like right now you're past your quarantine, correct?
Correct.
All right. And even though you're past your quarantine and feeling better than you were before when you were diagnosed, what would you say is still going on about you as far as your symptoms are concerned? Explain some of the things you're still dealing with.
Well, the the asthma situation is still out of control. I am now on daily medication. I have two daily medications I have to take.
Mm.
Um, I have I've been taking my inhaler just about every other day, and I actually have two inhalers now.
Wow.
One is supposed to be more powerful than the other, just in case one, and they're both supposed to be emergency inhalers. So,
Okay.
it's like two powerful inhaler situations. And I also have a nebulizer
Hmm.
um, to help me. So that, and I was told that that is a possibility to be permanent.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
Mm.
The IBS situation, the irritable bowel syndrome, I am still struggling with that as well.
Hmm.
And I was told that that may need something with what they're calling is kind of a reset. So they're treating the extreme symptoms that were caused by the COVID situation until
Mhm.
I kind of normalized to where I was before, where it was more tolerable, and not have to be on so many medications, because dealing with that, that's another three. So I think, let's see, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. I want to say I'm on about seven medications now.
Mm.
Mm.
So let May I ask you something too? And I know we want to get to the point of the post, but even while you were going through that, and taking us all into the household now of the Rodgers family, did you, when you first heard about your husband having COVID-19, did you think about uh, separation?
I did not. And the reason I didn't is because I felt like, well, we've already been with each other now. So if I'm going to get it, I got it. I mean, we sleep with each other. So the only separation that was done really was between us and the children. And it was more so him and the children than me and the children, which in hindsight doesn't really make much sense.
Sure. Sure.
But we just kind of felt like because we're such an affectionate family, it's like, well, he got it, we all got it. You know, I
Mhm.
mean, immediately in the mornings we're hugging on each other, kisses on foreheads, cheeks, and everything. So it's like,
Right.
And so if you did, do you think that maybe at some point, even feeling like that, that maybe you kind of underestimated the gravity of the effect and impact of COVID-19?
I definitely underestimated it. I also feel like we weren't as educated because I did not realize that just because someone in the family tested positive doesn't mean that the rest of us had it yet. So
Hmm.
that separation at that point might have done me some good, and
Sure.
I might not have gone through what I went through.
Hmm. Yeah.
Mhm.
The infectious matter, I mean, manner of which this is traveling, this COVID-19, it's not consistent all the time. The truth of the matter is that there's some folks that are doing the same thing you did as far as working from home. They were trying to do all the things that we were told to do as far as washing their hands and wearing masks, and yet they still somehow ended up testing positive. And so there's still some things about this and its transmission that they're trying to figure out and understand better. Having said that, though, just as far as the impact of your family, again, we know that the nature of this thing causes people to divide and separate. And you said you have a very affectionate family. How did this impact your children? Recognizing, you're in a situation where they would be really a harm to you to even come to you. It's not just a matter of keeping them safe. You had to be kept safe as well.
Mm.
Yeah. It was really, really hard on them. It was hard on me too. But I know to be strong because I'm mommy.
Mhm.
Um, that's what I have to do. The children, however, it was so hard because they were wanting the affection of their mother. They
Sure.
were wanting, that touch, and to have it frequently through the day and then being told, okay, you have to stay completely away from me for this period of time. It it was it was heartbreaking. They're sitting there. What they did was they would come to my door and they would say, "Air hugs, mommy," and blow
Mm.
kisses. You know,
Yeah.
my daughter, she in order to spend time with me, she sat at the door, with her legs crossed and would just talk to me.
Mm.
They desperately wanted to spend time with me, and it was just so hard. And uh, my son Christian was just like, I don't care. I'll just get COVID. Give me a hug. I want a hug. And I'm like,
Mm.
I said, I cannot in good conscience do that. I can't do that.
Hmm. And again, they don't know themselves what that would be.
Mhm.
They're saying they want it, but they don't really know
Right.
what that would feel like. The tragic scenarios that for some people, regardless of the age, COVID, once it actually does manifest, moves very quickly. Some are gone in days, some in a
Mhm.
matter of 2 weeks. And so they're saying that they want that, but they don't really know what it would manifest like there anyway. And on top of that, the truth of the matter is that they're now discovering this other component, which is that you can be reinfected.
Mm.
So even though
Yeah.
you may be right now at a point where you're in recovery, you could actually be reinfected. In fact, they're saying you may be more vulnerable.
Mm.
Right. And I also want to mention that I initially tested negative.
Right.
All right, and take us through that. Now, this was the first time that you actually went after,
Right.
uh,
We can
they
start
took-
there
or
too.
was this before?
We can start there too. So, first of all, I was tested more than once.
Okay.
I was tested a few times. The first time I was tested, well, okay, so first of all, let me say this. When I first got sick, I went to a local hospital. The
Okay.
local, the local hospital is in what they would call an urban neighborhood, you know, disenfranchised, impoverished, and whatever other names you want to pin to it. So, with that situation and being so dismissive, my doctor that I have out here in Indiana said to me, you know, I do want to give you better care. We are not research doctors here. I advise that you cross state lines and go to Chicago to seek care. So,
Okay.
Mhm.
fortunately, I was not so far into Indiana that that was a really big problem. Nevertheless, it still was an hour drive of me trying to control breathing and being in extreme
Mm.
pain to get to the hospital. So I ended up going.
So
Um,
let's not just brush over that, Asia, because you were actually having trouble breathing. Let's give a little more detail about that.
so what happened was this particular day, as you said, I do work from home, and it was in the middle of the day, and mm, I was doing everything possible that I could do because I'm grasping at my inhalers. I'm opening windows. I'm like, I can't breathe. I'm in pain. I'm feeling like flu symptoms. I'm feeling so horrible, and I'm trying to manage, and I realize that I can't. And then
Mhm.
I remembered that the doctor told me, about how the doctors are out here, and I was like, something's wrong, and I need real care. So I
Mhm.
called my husband. Well, I didn't call my husband. I was struggling to breathe, so I could
Mm.
not speak very much. So I texted Christian. He had his phone. Told him to call his dad and tell him what was going on. So he hopped in the car immediately from work and came and got me, took me to Northwestern,
Mm.
and that was an hour drive out. And I'm in the car, and he's sitting there watching me while he's driving, because I've got the window down. I'm having my inhaler. I am trying my best to catch my breath and to
Mhm.
deal with the pain. Um, loosening up the seat belts, and I mean, I'm in tears
Sure.
dealing with all of this mess.
Mhm.
And because of the anxiety, I'm sure it went along with that. Um,
It was scary,
yeah.
Made it more intense.
Mm.
definitely.
So what happened when you got to the hospital?
When I got to the hospital, I thought that because of my symptoms that they would move me a little faster. However, I was sitting in the waiting room for over an hour, struggling to breathe, in tears. They were like testing me, taking blood and stuff like that, or they attempted to. They couldn't because I was difficult, but they did give me other testing and stuff while I was waiting. But while I'm doing all this, they're pushing me in a wheelchair because I can't function properly. I'm not
Mm.
able to walk around. I can't breathe. I can't move. I'm in pain. So they're wheeling me all over the place until they can get me to where they need to get me.
Mm.
And I realized they were waiting for a certain area to clear up because without them telling me, they were already assuming she has COVID
Okay.
because of my symptoms. So
Okay.
I had to go to a special area.
Hmm. You raise a number of good points there, especially when it is that okay, you're going to an area that has more resources. Okay, you ended up going to a university hospital, where they
Right.
actually have teaching and things like that going on. So they're more resourced. But
Mhm.
even in a resourced hospital like that, there's the human factor that you see so much of something that you're less alarmed by it,
Mhm.
and even build up a certain amount of indifference to the fact of this is really difficult what this person is going through, and so they don't seem to have the same sense of urgency at times.
Because I didn't hear you say anything about them offering you any oxygen. You were having a hard time breathing. They didn't
Uh,
try to give you any oxygen or try to help you with your breathing or anything.
they just asked me if I had my inhaler, and I said I do, and they left it at that.
Which they thought may have been, well, let's just hope that they were thinking that might have been sufficient
Or
to at
better.
least sustain you until it
Okay.
is that they got you to, more resources. But again, you started off talking about the fact that you had gone to a hospital in an urban area, and what's clear is that not only are the urban areas less resourced, but there's still different biases that they have toward the customers or patients that are coming into their hospital that prevent them or hinder them from treating each patient with the type of care you would hope. If you're dealing with something as serious as COVID-19, you would hope that they would throw aside all those biases, but unfortunately, that's not necessarily the case.
Mm.
No, even in dealing with the doctors and me telling them that I was in so much pain
Mhm.
that the stuff they were trying to throw at me was not going to work. Like
Hmm.
I kind of felt like it was insulting that they were like, "We're going to try some Tylenol." Like, do you think I would have showed up at the ER if Tylenol would have worked? You know, like,
You better give me the good stuff, doctor.
does that
Well,
make
no,
sense?
no, she's saying a good point as well. I mean, most people recognize right now is not a good time to be at the hospital.
Hmm.
So if you're going to risk going to the hospital,
Right.
Tylenol is not going to be the solution to your situation.
It's not. And then as soon as I was saying things like that, they're like, um, we're not comfortable with giving opioids and and all this stuff. And I was like, first of all, I already know where this is going. Um, I am not a drug seeker. I am in pain, and you can look and see that by looking at my vitals. So
Hmm.
this is not a game to me. Fix this. I'm hurting. I'm not even asking you to take the pain away. I'm asking you to make it manageable. This is torture.
Hmm.
At
Yeah,
least help me breathe.
yeah. But unfortunately, again, that bias and indifference that they've built up often hinders them from even using it. Maybe they're trained enough to recognize the symptoms that you were talking about. Maybe they're not, and maybe even in the face of those symptoms and that evidence, they would still lean to the other suspicions because of
Hmm.
what their experiences have been. But this is not about beating up on the first responders. The reality of it is that they need not only more resources, and they need to be better equipped to deal with this thing. They need to be made aware that this is not the time to be allowing their biases to hinder people and their needs to be addressed when you're talking about such a deadly disease. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people are not really seeing,
Hmm.
how deadly this disease truly is. I mean, the fact that we're talking about 178 or 79,000 people dead doesn't seem to have rung the kind of bells that you would think people would have about hold it, hold it, hold it. This is a serious, serious thing here. And she's showing the symptoms. We need to look at this differently.
I got to tell you, when I heard that Xavier, and I forgot what I was doing, but I just broke down because my mind all it went to Xavier, Asia, the kids. I'm here. We can't go over there. Seeing how it's been impacting other people, I just couldn't even imagine having to experience you in the hospital and me not being able to touch you, be able to see you, know what's going on with you. I did not like that. And then when you ended up going to the hospital and we were given the phone number to the nurses station, it's like I'm like I don't know. I don't know. Can we get in the car? Can we go there? And if we do go there, then what's happening? What's happening with the children? I mean, all of that stuff that you have to consider when your loved one is being diagnosed with this this unpredictable illness that we know have been killing people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my husband did try to come and see me because some people were getting visitors for some reason. But they were
From
telling
COVID patients, you mean that were diagnosed with COVID?
So
some were getting
she's there.
You
Yeah.
At which hospital? The urban hospital?
No, this is at
Oh,
yeah.
but see, that's what I'm saying. There's too much strangeness going on.
I'm not trying to speak poorly on them, but I will say the people that were of the white persuasion seemed to have visitors, and the rest of us did not. So
Mm.
I don't know what that was about. I don't know if they were like investors or what. Do they donate? I don't know, but people when they were coming in, they were immediately told, okay, you can't stay here, and you can't even. They wouldn't even let them be in the waiting room with the people. But I saw a couple of people that were not my color come
You
in.
just basically saying that black people couldn't have visitors and white people could.
People of color.
People of color. So it wasn't just
People
black.
of color,
It was
period. Okay.
Black, Hispanic. They were not able to have anybody with them, but white people were able to have.
That's
people.
interesting.
That's more than interesting. It's pretty sad.
Yeah. Well, really, nobody should have. So, I mean, it was dangerous for them to even be doing that.
But the problem is that with this disease doing what it does, and the methodologies have been pretty consistent, which is to isolate folks. For some to have been allowed to not have to deal with this isolation and others had to, that's still, that's it's not just a matter of whether or not they were putting themselves at risk. One of the most tragic sides of this is the people that had to say goodbye to their loved ones without being afforded that.
Are you thinking that there, maybe there's even a bias when it comes to the disease, that people feel like it's worse, that it's catchier when black people have it or people of color have it, and that it's not as bad if white people have it, or they don't spread it as bad, or as what do you think?
It seems like some people feel like it does more damage to the urban communities, but whether or not we spread it fast or anything like that, I haven't really seen anybody act like that. But they do seem to act like we get taken down faster, and I'm not sure what that is. And I want to say this, because I don't want to badmouth our first responders. First of all, I want to say that the staff that I dealt with, once I got to the back and was getting taken care of, I had the best group of people. My nurses, my doctors, but more so my nurses than anything, because they are the more hands-on people in dealing with me. They were completely awesome.
Because I showed them the hell gloves.
Well, yeah.
Well, they wore gloves when they had to deal with me. They had to suit up and everything.
Right.
But even in the urban hospital, I'm just going to call it that. Even in the urban hospital, the nurses tried to fight for me. They tried to get me better care, but the doctor pushed back for whatever reasons. And it appeared through the conversations that I was hearing, it was more so due to a shortage in supplies. So it was like they're having to choose. Is this person more high risk, or are these other people more high risk? And I did not appear to be as high risk as others.
Which again, it boils back to what I was saying. They need to be more resourced. There's no question about that. Let me just say this too. There was another component at work when it is that things happened, because we did what we do, which is to call out and ask for the prayer warriors to come on board and be aware of the fact it is that that you had this thing that you were dealing with. The truth of the matter is that as much as the care is appreciated for the first responders, much of what it is they're doing is simply trying to make you comfortable while this thing takes its course, because they can't always stop anything.
Mhm.
But the strength, power, and healing that we needed, we went to the source,
Yeah.
and truly lifted you up consistently, as well as many of the others. We had a whole prayer chain going, all over actually. That
And then
was
the chains had chains.
okay. So your name wound up being out there. I know you started getting calls and text messages from people that you hadn't heard for in years, because this was out there,
Mhm.
Right.
and the love, the attention that you got. Well, it reflects a number of things. One, that to recognize and appreciate the life that you've led. Is one that's valuable, and nobody wants to see this life ending. And as much as they know this thing can be incredibly threatening, this was the time to step up and show that you care, and do all that you can to at least pray and
Mhm.
try to bring, the power that God has into the situation. So, um, recognizing that, how did you feel when you were made aware of how many people were? Well, in fact, you probably still don't know exactly how many people, but that there were a lot of people praying for you. How did that make you feel in the midst of what you were dealing with?
Um, Honestly, I was very, very moved. I was
Mm.
very moved. And getting the calls and things that I got, the messages that I got, I was like, wow, I didn't know so many people cared, you know? Um, looking at the messages and everything, where people were legitimately asking, how is she doing? What's the status? What's going on? And I was just like, you guys don't even know, because in dealing with something like this and knowing you have to be quarantined and you can't be around your loved ones, it's a
Mm.
lonely feeling.
Mm.
I
So
remember you saying that a few times, that you felt so lonely,
I
Mhm.
did. I
so
felt
isolated.
so lonely. So lonely. So to know that I was alive in people's thoughts and hearts, that made me feel like I wasn't by myself.
Mhm.
Even, yeah, yeah, that
Even
definitely made a difference. You know, also dealing with the sickness, and the thought of, or the idea of it coming back, I still want to deal with the aspect of the disparity in sickness in general. And of course, COVID is like that. Why do you think it seems like people are stigmatizing? Um, like, I was just, remember I'd asked you about the difference between the blacks and the whites, and you made that difference there as you saw them in the hospital. And that Ohio law person said that he felt that blacks were probably more prone to it because they don't wash their hands as much. Now, do you think? I mean, he did. He said that. I think he got fired. Out of Ohio, no doubt, no less.
people, huh?
But so that was his understanding. He was with ER too, some kind of thing, a physician who actually said that. So, wow. And so, having said that, do you think, just like people have preconceptions about, even with the police department, where it seems like black people are violent, or when black people, African Americans, are going to get the treatment, that people are in the back of their mind treating them like the reason that you have it is because you didn't take care of yourself?
Absolutely. I felt like that there's definitely a lot of assumptions made in African American communities.
Mhm.
And I don't understand, because it's like we're people too. So why is it that just because we're people of color, that means that we're not following rules or we're not taking care of each other? In fact, if you pay attention to the news, most of the people that are fighting back are not people of color. They are they're white people. They're people in the more privileged neighborhoods. Taking away our freedoms. How dare you tell me to wear a mask? And we're like, just wear the mask. Stop being difficult. Okay.
Sport your mask. Get your pretty mask on.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, and the people that I know, we got hand sanitizers everywhere, disinfectant sprays everywhere. And in the car, in the glove compartment, on the
Sent
front,
it.
on the back seat, they said it right. Got about 4 of them in the purse, got got each child has a couple of them, like it's all over the place.
Like Monk. That's why we had you watch Monk. Asia comes out the hospital and now she's binge watching Monk.
I'm becoming a
Who is
monk
it?
now.
He's scared of every sickness, every disease, and yeah.
It's like but it's kind of like you kind of connect with a certain part of him at this point, what we're dealing with right now, because it's like every little thing. Like, for example, I get things delivered a lot.
Mhm.
And it's more so because I don't want to accidentally interact with somebody and I bring stuff home. But even with that, I'm like, oh, and hearing that there are people that do this and they wear their masks and all the stuff and they still got it. So now I get the packages, bring it inside, disinfecting the packaging, open stuff up, disinfecting everything in there, and then washing my hands, throwing away everything, washing my hands again, disinfecting again. The whole house smells like disinfectant. So I'm like going over. I bought some school supplies and some earphones for the children. So the children grab the earphones out the box, and here I come. Spraying stuff. Like, Mom, like, kill the COVID. So, it's like with I feel the people of color are more likely to go overboard as opposed to just being, rebellious about it. We're like, I don't want COVID. Are you bringing it up? We don't do that. In fact,
We buying that spirit of COVID
Okay.
right in the church.
there were some videos going viral. There was a young lady sitting at a desk at somewhere, and somebody came by to shake her hand. She said, "We don't do that anymore." So, it's like, no, we're not about that life. So I don't know. I honestly, I think it's rooted in racism. To be honest with you, I mean,
I think you're absolutely right.
That-
And the truth of the matter is that ignorance doesn't have anything to do with the degree of melanin that you have in your skin.
Mm,
There's ignorance for enough to go around every ethnic group. Okay.
yeah.
But unfortunately, you're right. Sometimes the media as well will aid that stigma that's attached to African America by the way it is that they're reporting things, um, adding to the fuel that they already got going already. The fire's already there. They have so many things it is that they are fearful about, which is why it is that we
Mhm.
have people shooting somebody who doesn't have any weapons at all,
Mhm.
walking away from them. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. We're not gonna deal with that this show.
Now, what do you think, as far as, like you said, maybe we're not as educated about this. How do you think we could actually get people to listen and respond to the facts and the science regarding COVID-19?
I know.
well, I feel that more people telling their stories is helpful.
Hmm.
And the reason I say that is because although they're putting out information in the news and things like that in the media, there's certain things that are kind of left out. Like, for example, I told you that initially my tests were negative.
Hmm.
That made me research and ask questions. Well, if my tests were negative, how could I be positive?
Hmm.
Well, what's happening is with the swab testing, they are at least 35% of them that are false negatives. That is a
Mm.
very high percentage
Hmm.
for something like this. And so, what they are left with doing is utilizing other ways of diagnosing it.
Mm-hmm.
They might see certain things in the blood, or they're going based off of your symptoms. With a lot of different diseases are based off of your symptoms as well that they
Hmm.
diagnose with. Um, so that's really what happened with me. It was like, okay, well, they have this checkbox. I mean, it's a checklist, and it's like, oh, she's checking off all but two of these boxes. This is COVID. It was pretty much that simple, or I should say, not that simple, because I was tested up the wazoo because of the swab testing being negative.
Let's go to that other test. Like you had taken us to the test, and I know we're going back, but that reminded me of how you said Xavier was tested. I thought that was really interesting. Now he was positive with the swab test.
It was
Now,
positive.
tell people how he got tested.
So it was like a drive-through situation. He had to make an appointment. The appointment ended up being at a Walmart. They have like pop-up sites at different places. So it was at a Walmart.
Mhm.
And so he went and got tested. He said they went so far up his nose with the swab. It was like they were stirring up his brains. But, it was like- but then they called him and let him know.
But didn't you say they made him do something himself?
Yes. Oh, you want to know the process? Okay. So
Right.
what he did, and this was in Illinois that he did the testing. So they had no physical contact with him. They had a bag attached to some kind of stick thing or whatever, reached it out, had him. They said, roll your window down just a little bit. They went it down too much. They said, put your voucher in there. He put the voucher in there. They took it.
Now, where did he get the voucher from? Where did this come from?
You have to go online, and when you find these sites, some of these sites require you come with a voucher. So we printed out the voucher. So if you don't have a printer, I don't know what to tell you. But we had to print out the voucher. And so he got the voucher. It said, put the voucher in there. Then they put the stuff in the bag, put it back on this stick thing or whatever, reach down. Okay, roll your window down just a little bit. Okay. So
So what's the stuff in the bag, though?
the bag has the swab and everything needed to do the
Okay.
test. We're gonna make him do the test himself. So they give him the stuff. He has it in there. Then they hold up a sign that says, "Call this number." so, so he's with his cell phone, which is interesting because they don't tell you ahead of time you need to have your cell phone. So thank God he had it. So he has his cell phone. He calls the number, and they tell him over the phone how to test himself.
Did y'all hear that? This is what he went through in order to get tested. Keep going.
And so they tell him how far up to go. And he's like, going so far up, I'm starting to brain something. I can't go no further. I'll poke my own eye out. But
So they watch him go up and tell him that's not high enough.
right, and then further.
He got to torture himself. That's not enough.
He's
More.
down my eyes. And everything. So then put the swab in the bag, seal it up. He said, "All right, open the window just a little bit. That's too much. Don't really put it out there." They grabbed it with their little stick thing.
They got
All
a
right,
stick.
it's a little stick thing with the grab thing. They use that to grab. All right, thank you. Bye. Leave. And he said they were all masked up and everything. So it's not like they weren't, wearing protection. They were fully protected, but they still wanted no encounter.
So they come out there with hazmat suits and everything and have their little sticks in his little bag. Watch him stick himself in the nose.
Right.
See ya. Next. Oh my goodness gracious. I mean, do you see what people have to go through? Yeah, but I thought that was interesting how they had him test himself.
It is interesting, but I guess the thing that is, I guess, really troubling to
Mm,
me is what this is doing to us as I'm talking about our society as a whole.
mm,
We were having a difficult time as it was in being empathetic to one another and
mm,
truly trying to actually connect with people. I'm not talking about sympathy. I'm talking about empathy.
mm.
And now we've got this thing here that is putting up these barriers and insisting that we, distance ourselves. Um, it is really a difficult thing to negotiate with. How do you somehow still become humane when somebody is going through what they're going through when you have all of these barriers?
What do you mean?
Well, the barriers that say that you can't, okay, like they were doing as they were instructed, as far as he's concerned, they could not show him more compassion because
Mm,
they had to keep themselves safe,
mm,
right? So they had to deal with that. He had to deal with the fact that he had to deal with it without them touching him.
mhm.
And then after all of that experience, then he has to go home to his family. So there's a multiple dimensions
Mhm.
and levels of how this thing is impacting you. Just like you were saying about not wanting to tell people, everybody, about what it is that was going on because you didn't want that stigma. You didn't want people to
Yeah.
treat you a certain way, and yet it's clear that there is an exaggeration, if you will,
Mhm.
to the way people feel about you once you've been diagnosed.
Exactly. And let's talk about that mental, that psychological toll that I know you felt the strain in your household.
Absolutely. And there's fears, even although I can work from home, um, I'm a contractor. So I do
Mm,
not have sick days. I don't have paid vacation. And so there was concern about me losing my job because, I had to let my boss know what was going on. And he's like, keep me updated on whether or not you can work. You
Mm,
know, he wanted to know how I was doing, but he also needed to know, do I still have an employee?
mm,
right.
And that was scary to the point, and I understand that I might have been a little crazy for this one, and I don't advise other people to do it, but I was so scared of losing my job. I had my laptop brought to me to the hospital, and I worked from the hospital room. And
mm.
the nurses would look at me
Yeah.
like, are you working? They're like, gotta do what I gotta do. And I did as much as I could do. Thankfully, they were sympathetic to the fact that I might move slower in
Mhm,
getting things done because of
mhm,
my situation. But there was all kinds of factors in place. It's like, one, am I going to get worse? Because they wanted to keep me longer because I had continued symptoms. So they were concerned. And this is the other thing, and where they explained to me why this the testing may show up negative at first.
Mhm.
Excuse me, is because when you are not experiencing symptoms right away, sometimes it doesn't show positive until you are on that, what they would call that last leg of
Mm,
you having COVID.
mhm,
And so they were kind of watching me to see how far into it I was, to see
mhm,
if I was close to that last leg, which is why they were concerned about releasing me, because they felt like time wise, I was close to that part, and they were concerned about me possibly getting worse
mm,
mhm.
or getting better if I got better. Um, so,
mhm,
so there was that anxiety as well,
Sure.
and my husband, having to hold down everything himself, and he's not able to work from home.
Right.
He works long hours, so he's having to work all these long hours. The children are doing e-learning, and he's like trying to manage everything and check in with me and find out what's going on, and it's just all of it is overwhelming. And I feel like he had some guilt as well, felt some guilt because it started with him,
Mhm,
and he got to the point where he's like, I don't want to hear COVID. I don't want to hear
mm,
anything about COVID anymore. I don't want to hear anybody mention COVID. right now, I'm done with COVID right now.
And really, that is so real.
It's real, but it's counter what we really need. It's kind of like we need to be drawing closer to God. And instead, we push away. We need to be learning more about COVID. Instead, we get tired of it. We become overwhelmed. The reality of it is that we're not in our rational mindset.
Hmm.
We're reacting to it, but our rational mind would say, you need to know more about this so that you can be more targeted in your response and doing the things that is going to be more helpful to your family. But it's hard to do that. I'm not passing judgment on them. I'm just saying, unfortunately, that is the reaction that happens.
Hmm.
People push away from the thing that they actually need to be learning more about.
Right. It's like this battle fatigue.
Hmm.
It's like people, I'm just tired. I'm tired of hearing about it. I'm tired of being sick. I'm tired of not living my life the way it was. And we really have to be adaptable.
Yeah,
It's not going back to the way it was.
yeah, it's a new normal
It
period,
is.
and
And
it's one that we don't know yet. It's still
exactly.
evolving.
Exactly. And I think that as far as the resilience is concerned, you actually identified some powerful tools that we have to actually probably help to tell people to arm themselves with. And one is the love and support of a community. It is, not just your immediate family, but the community of people encouraging you, inspiring you,
Hmm.
to push through this.
Hmm.
And maybe, it helps to extend. Maybe he needed more of that outreach as well. What do you do when people so you're open to it and people are outreaching to you, but how was he able to cope? Your
Really,
husband.
it was really just him doing what he loves to do. He has a car out here that he works on, and that was just his escape. He did that while he wasn't able to do other things, and that's what he did to get his mind off of it. Because really, anything else just reminded him of the situation.
Yeah.
You
So he
know,
had an outlet. I know that we're wrapping things up. Um, Here's one of the things it is that I think we have to leave with those that are paying attention to this program. There is not a formula. I know people are very prone to want to hear a formula, a pattern, something they could count on and apply to their lives. This is
Hmm.
not the same for everybody. The way things happen for you might yield an entirely different outcome for someone else.
Hmm.
The support that you gave, or I mean, that was given to you, may not be there for someone else. And so the reality of it is that this thing that we're dealing with is not going to be a one size fit all for everybody, period. And so we can't really say, if you do this or if you do that, it's going to be better for you. The reason they've, I think, promoted the mask thing is because it's universally been said to minimize, not negate it, but minimize the spread of it so that it is not as prevalent as it would be if we weren't wearing a mask.
Hmm.
But there, even with the mask, even with the hand washing, even with gloves, there still is not a way to avoid this thing altogether. And so we need to be informed, stay informed, continue to grow in our knowledge with this whole thing.
Hmm.
And I think more than any of those things, try to find an innovative way for us to remain connected. I mean, the show that we're doing right now, I don't know that you would have been considering doing this show if not for the restrictions that COVID-19 has presented, causing people to have an appetite and a hunger to want to see one another, you
Yeah.
know?
true.
So we have to use innovation to overcome this thing.
I completely agree with you. I also want to point out something really quick so people understand. At no point during this time did I have a fever.
Mm,
So this thing that they're using
test
to
people.
say that this is supposed to help, minimize people having it, people coming into work or going into certain settings and like, don't worry, we have people at the doors taking temperatures. It means very little because there are
Hmm.
so many people that have it that never had a fever.
Hmm.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Elevated temperatures is not a constant. It's not
Right.
something, and sometimes even with those that are showing symptoms, they don't always have an elevated fever
Yeah,
or
and
temperature.
the other thing too to keep in mind is that so many people are like they're not worried about getting sick. Well, be concerned about making somebody else sick
Hmm.
That's
because you
right.
could be walking with it, and somebody that somebody else loves can get hurt because of that because you spread it,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
so
Well, we're happy, to put it lightly, because I mean, I'm dad, you're princess. I was a,
and
I
I'm
was
mommy.
losing it. I was definitely losing it. I was definitely going to God, asking Him, what did He want me to do in the midst of this? And at the same time, I was blessed as well because my phone was blowing up with people that were saying, "What's up with Asia? What's going on?" Because they know how close we are as a family.
And
You
that
know.
that that other song really came. Well, I know he's not introducing it yet, but we were not. And it's really hard. Other people, you trying to comfort each other
Hmm.
and trying to be a comfort for you, trying to be a comfort for each other. It really does impact so many people
Hmm.
at so many levels. And
Hmm.
so, thank you so much for allowing us to interview you and share this. And hopefully, it'll help somebody else to know that they're not alone. But we really need to spread the word. People need to stay informed
Hmm.
and be diligent about staying safe.
Yes, be safe,
Absolutely.
be prayerful, be innovative, and like you said, be diligent.
Yeah,
And don't give up.
yeah. There was a whole
Right.
nother aspect of churches, but we don't have time for that.
Right. Well, and I also want people to know that it is a good idea to go to the CDC site.
Hmm.
Okay.
Go there because it does give you a wealth of information in regards to the things that they are coming up with, or
That's
things that they
good.
are learning, and a list of symptoms and what to do if you start experiencing these symptoms. So please, people, even if you just need information, go to the cdc.gov.
Hmm.
And share the
Information,
information that you get with other people.
right? Information about how you can help somebody else that you love. Either
Mhm.
way, it's a great source of resource for information. So I definitely agree with you there.
Well, we're going a little past time. People, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this evening on Pure, which is, tell them.
Oh, okay. I thought you was just signing off for me. I'm like, okay, go ahead, do your thing. Um, yes, thank you for joining us on Pure, Perfectly Undefined, Raw Elegance. Remember to appreciate God's perfect design, which is you. And we
Yeah,
will be here next week, Friday night, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Until
Lord
then,
willing.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
yeah.
good night.